In some places, you have to be careful where you tread. Muslims believe that from the very beginning, the great Arab conquests were all about Islam. But in the 7th century, you can barely find a new religion called Islam anywhere in the historical record. And that's why I've come here. This is Jerusalem. They've been building walls here for a long time. But they've never built a wall yet that could keep people safe forever. Historically, the capital city of God has always been one of the world's most conquerable places. Here, if anywhere, in the one-time world of the Roman Empire, the 6th and 7th centuries live on. The same intensities, the same anxieties. For thousands of years, Jerusalem had been shaped and mapped by the religions of its rulers. When the Jews ruled, they built a gigantic temple which dominated the city. Later, when the Roman Empire became Christian, Jerusalem was transformed into the world centre of Christian pilgrimage. Look at the street plan now, and you saw a map of a Christian world. The Jews were gone, airbrushed out of the picture. The Romans constructed a new Holy of Holies, the Holy Sepulchre, a vast cathedral raised over the traditionally accepted site of Jesus' crucifixion. That was how God and empire worked. The Roman Empire believed in God, and God believed in the Roman Empire. But then, in the year 636, God changed his mind. Arab marauders appear outside the walls. Sophronius, the city's bishop, writes that it is too dangerous to leave. The Arabs were closing in, and there was nothing people of Christian Jerusalem could do about it except to stay where they were, look out from their walls, and await the arrival of the Arabs. And out of the desert they came, and they had become irresistible. In 636, they beat a Roman army at Yarmouk. Soon after, they beat a Persian army at Qadisiyah. Both empires too weak after their own long wars to resist the Arabs. They marched into the richest provinces of the defeated empires. And less than 5 years after the death of Muhammad, they set their eyes upon the promised land. The land flowing with milk and honey, the land that God had promised to the Jews. Now, the Arabs had come to claim that birthright for themselves. The children of Israel had made it a Jewish land. The Romans had made it a Christian, holy land. If the Arabs did arrive with a new religion, then we should be able to find its imprint here. Contemporary Christian sources confirm that late in the 630s, the Arabs took over Jerusalem by peaceful negotiation. But what they don't say is what the conqueror's religion was.
The truth of the matter is we don't know what was the true religion of the first Arab conquerors.
We have a problem because this group of people from Arabia is tiny, and they're ruling over much larger populations who are very well versed theologically, of Christians and Jews and Zoroastrians, have very sophisticated religious ideas. Why would these populations not have risen up in rebellion against their Muslim rulers if these Muslim rulers are trying to impose something totally different that was hostile to their own beliefs?
What were the Arabs up to? What were their motives? We know they called themselves believers, but believers in what? Certain Christian contemporaries tell us that the Arabs believed in a single God and that they followed a guide or instructor. But in general, their understanding of what the Arabs believed was deeply confused. Was it a form of Judaism or some kind of Christianity? Or did they have a whole new religion of their own?
For the Jews as well as for the Christians, these are people coming from the desert. They don't know who these people are. They don't really know what they believe. They hear things.
But perhaps there was a clue. At first, the new Arab rulers seemed closer to the Jews. They weren't interested in the Christian holy places. Instead, they began praying on the ruins of the old Jewish temple. All this only added to the Christians' sense of paranoia. Behind the invasion of the Arabs, they began to suspect a Jewish conspiracy. The moment the Arabs took over Jerusalem, they headed straight up here to what then as now is a broad, open, man-made esplanade. The holiest place to Jews anywhere in the world. So the fact that the Arab conquerors came up here and started building a prayer hall on such a sensitive spot inevitably served to raise quite a few eyebrows.
The Jews hoped that these Arabs from the desert come as liberators. They permitted the Jews to come back to the Temple Mount and pray there. And the Jews started believing that maybe there is something messianic in these people, and maybe their leader is the Messiah who will permit them to rebuild the temple. Christian theologians who speak about the Arab conquerors find it very hard to understand that they're dealing with a new religion. Who are they?
One thing is absolutely clear. Nobody had any notion that the Arabs were doing what they were doing in the name of a freshly minted and coherent new religion, still less that what they were doing was in the name of something called Islam. So did Islam even exist in those early years after Muhammad? In Jerusalem, 30 years after the conquest, it was business as usual. There were Christian pilgrims in the streets. The churches were full. Ancient religions were practicing their ancient rites. But where was the prophet in all this? 30 years after the death of Muhammad, here in Jerusalem, an Arab warlord called Muawiyah was hailed as leader of the new Arab Empire. But if Muawiyah was a Muslim, then he showed precious little sign of it. The astonishing thing is that nowhere, not on his inscriptions, not on his coins, not on any of his documents, is there so much as a single mention of Muhammad. In the Quran, it tells Muhammad to follow the path trod by Abraham. Maybe that's the place to start looking. I'm in Hebron, which is a town on the West Bank, and I'm currently in a Jewish settlement. But Hebron is also very much a Palestinian city, and so the atmosphere is probably as tense as it is anywhere between Israelis and Palestinians. There are Israeli soldiers here with very large guns. And what they're guarding is this, the burial place of Abraham. Abraham, through the line of his son Isaac, was the father of the Jews. When everyone else was still pagan, Abraham worshipped the one true God. And for this, God rewarded him and his descendants with the promised land, part of which today goes by the name of Israel. This is the tomb of Abraham. And the reason that the soldiers are here is that these are not the only people who regard him as their ancestor. And they're not the only people who believe that God gave them the promised land. On the other side of the grill are Muslims, and they tell a different story. This is the Muslim side, and the reason they revere Abraham is because, as well as Isaac, he had another son, Ishmael, the father of the Arabs. This is the tomb of Abraham that we saw earlier from the Jewish side, but we're now looking at it from the Muslim side. The significance of Abraham and this association that was made between Arabs and Ishmaelites, the children of Ishmael, is actually much older than Islam itself. It remains central to Islam to this day. According to Muslims, Abraham is their prophet, and the religion he founded was not the religion of the Jews, but Islam. And in the Quran, we read that Ishmael helped Abraham to build a house of God at a place called Bebkة. Neither the Quran nor any contemporary source actually specifies where Bebkة was, but Muslims now would have absolutely no doubt that Bebkة is another name for a place deep in the Arabian deserts. Mecca is where Muslims believe everything began. The crossroads of faith and history. Surely here then, you would think, we could find solid evidence for Islam's beginnings. But there is a problem. Aside from a single ambiguous mention in the Quran itself, there is no mention of Mecca, not one, in any datable text for over 100 years after Muhammad's death.